Have you ever wondered why we're drawn to the dark? Why we willingly step into virtual nightmares, hearts pounding, palms sweating? The answer lies in the very architecture of fear, an architecture meticulously crafted by two titans of the horror genre, Resident Evil and Silent Hill. These games didn't just scare us, they redefined how video games could make us feel, transforming horror from a simple jump scare into a complex, emotional experience. Before them, horror in games was often about a fast-paced rhythm, a frantic rush to survive. Think of a zombie apocalypse as a high-speed chase. It's about reflexes, about outrunning the monster on your tail. The fear is primal, immediate, and based on action. But what if horror wasn't just a chase? What if it was a slow, creeping dread? What if the real monster wasn't the one you could see, but the one you couldn't? This shift in thinking, from horror as a rhythm to horror as a feeling, is where our story begins. It's a journey into the mechanics of tension and the psychology of dread, pioneered by two games that would forever change the landscape of digital fear. In 1996, Capcom unleashed Resident Evil upon the world, and nothing was ever the same. The game plunged us into the claustrophobic confines of the Spencer Mansion, a place where every corner held a potential threat. But what made Resident Evil so revolutionary wasn't just its zombies. It was how the game made you feel utterly powerless. The director Shinji Mikami masterfully weaponized the game's own limitations to create an unparalleled sense of tension. Remember the tank controls? The deliberate, slow-turning animation made every movement a calculated risk. You couldn't just spin around to face a threat. You had to commit to each step. This mechanical clumsiness wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. It ensured you were always vulnerable, always a step behind. Then there were the fixed camera angles. We've become so accustomed to having full control over our view, but Resident Evil took that away. The camera was a silent observer, often positioned to hide what was just around the corner or down the hall. That distinctive sound of a zombie's moan from off-screen, a sound you could hear but couldn't see the source of, was pure, distilled dread. You were forced to walk toward the unseen danger, your imagination filling in the terrifying blanks. And who could forget the limited resources? Every bullet, every herb, every ink ribbon for saving your game was a precious commodity. This scarcity forced you into a constant state of strategic anxiety. Do you use your last shotgun shell on this one zombie, or save it for whatever monstrosity lurks in the next room? Do you risk venturing further without saving, or backtrack to a safe room and use up a valuable ink ribbon? These were not just gameplay choices, they were life-or-death decisions that amplified the pressure with every passing minute. Resident Evil taught us that true horror isn't just about the monster, it's about the agonizing decisions you have to make to survive it. It transformed gameplay mechanics from simple tools into instruments of fear. 3 years after Resident Evil locked us in its mansion, Konami's team, Silent, beckoned us into the fog-shrouded streets of Silent Hill. If Resident Evil was a masterclass in mechanical tension, Silent Hill was a profound exploration of psychological terror. It took the fear out of the immediate environment and placed it directly inside the player's mind. The game wasn't just trying to scare you, it was trying to unsettle you on a deeply personal level. The town of Silent Hill itself was a character, a manifestation of protagonist Harry Mason's trauma and guilt. The dense, oppressive fog wasn't just a technical trick to hide graphical limitations. It was a metaphor for confusion and isolation. It choked the world, reducing your vision to mere feet, making you feel utterly alone and vulnerable. The only warning of nearby danger was the crackle of your pocket radio, a sound that became synonymous with impending doom. This audio cue was genius. It told you something was out there in the fog, unseen, but it never told you what, where, or when it would strike. The terror was in the anticipation. The monster design in Silent Hill was unlike anything seen before. These weren't just zombies or creatures. They were twisted, symbolic representations of pain, fear, and suppressed desires. The twitching, skinless figures and deformed nurses were disturbing not because they were gory, but because they felt like they were born from a deeply troubled subconscious. They were personal nightmares given physical form. The game's narrative was deliberately ambiguous, pieced together through cryptic notes and surreal encounters. It didn't hand you answers. It forced you to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of reality, suffering, and atonement. Silent Hill proved that the most terrifying place isn't a haunted house, but the dark, unexplored corners of the human psyche. The dual-pronged assault of Resident Evil's tension and Silent Hill's atmosphere created a seismic shift in the games industry. Developers realized that horror could be more than just cheap thrills. It could be a medium for sophisticated adult storytelling. The legacy of these two games is everywhere. You can see Resident Evil's DNA in the resource management and claustrophobic design of games like Dead Space, where every corridor feels like a death trap and every shot counts. You can feel its influence in the over-the-shoulder perspective that its fourth installment popularized, a standard for action games to this day. Silent Hill's influence is perhaps more subtle but just as profound. It paved the way for a wave of psychological horror games that prioritized atmosphere and narrative over combat. Titles like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, which famously stripped the player of all weapons, owe a massive debt to Silent Hill's philosophy of helplessness. The modern indie horror scene, with its focus on narrative-driven experiences that explore themes of mental health, trauma, and grief, is a direct descendant of Silent Hill's introspective terror. Games like What Remains of Edith Finch or Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, while not traditional horror, use similar atmospheric and psychological tools to tell deeply emotional stories. Resident Evil taught us how to build a scary game. Silent Hill taught us why we are scared, forever changing how developers approach narrative and emotional depth. So, this brings us back to our original question. Why do we enjoy being scared? Why do we seek out these experiences that are designed to make us feel anxious and afraid? The answer might be in something called terror management theory. This idea suggests that when we're confronted with our own mortality, even in a safe, simulated environment like a video game, it can paradoxically make us feel more alive. It's a controlled confrontation with our deepest fears. When you finally solve that puzzle in Resident Evil under immense pressure, or escape a monster in Silent Hill with your heart pounding, the sense of relief and accomplishment is euphoric. It's a safe way to experience danger. You get the adrenaline rush, the thrill of survival, without any of the real-world consequences. Playing these games is like riding a roller coaster. You scream, you feel a sense of peril, but you know you're strapped in safely. This controlled fear allows us to explore the boundaries of our own courage and resilience. In the end, it's not just about being scared, it's about overcoming that fear. It's the cathartic release after a long period of tension. These games don't just frighten us, they empower us, proving that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, we have the strength to push forward and survive. From the calculated tension of Resident Evil to the psychological depths of Silent Hill, these games have left an indelible mark on the industry and on us, the players. They showed us that horror could be smart, emotional, and deeply meaningful. They turned fear into an art form. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the dark heart of horror gaming. If you enjoyed this analysis, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the games that define us. What are your most memorable moments from Resident Evil or Silent Hill? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and embrace the darkness.